Back. So, in today's lecture, we'll focus on peer relationships during middle childhood. And this is a stage when friendships and social connections become very important in children's lives. So, as children get older, their understanding of themselves and others deepens, and this shapes how they interact with their peers and form lasting bonds. And so, we'll cover some key areas. We'll cover childhood relationships on friendships, so how friendships form, what makes them strong, and why they matter. We'll also go over peer acceptance, popularity, and rejection, so how children's social status among their peers affects their confidence and behavior. And we'll also cover some bullying, so what bullying is and why it happens and how it impacts both bullies and victims. So as children grow older, they start to understand themselves and others better. This helps them form stronger and closer relationships with their peers. Older children tend to spend more time with their friends and see those friendships as very important. Most school-age children have several friends and are part of peer groups both inside and outside of school. Having friends and being accepted by peers play a big role in how well children adjust socially and emotionally. Friendships give children companionship, fun, and emotional support. During middle childhood, friendships become more about mutual care and trust. Friends help each other both emotionally and practically. By ages 9 to 10, sharing similar values and following friendship rules become important. Friends expect each other to be loyal and trustworthy. Breaking trust, like sharing secrets or not helping a friend, can end friendships. Children often distinguish between best friends, good friends, and casual friends depending on how close they are. Girls often have fewer but deeper friendships, and most children around age 10 say they have a best friend. Having close, supportive friendships is linked with positive outcomes like higher self-esteem, kindness, and less bullying. Poor quality friendships, on the other hand, are related to problems like depression and anxiety. Children tend to become friends with others who have similar interests, personalities, and backgrounds. And they often choose friends who share their gender, ethnicity, or cultural heritage. Children that grow up in diverse environments are more likely to have friends from different racial or ethnic backgrounds, which can help them become more open-minded and socially confident. So, in going back to similarity and social comparison, children tend to form friendships with peers who share similar interests, play preferences, and personality traits. Cognitive abilities and intelligence also play a role, and they can affect the capacity for perspective taking and reciprocity. Demographic similarities that include gender, race, and ethnicity can further influence friendship choices. As children grow older, they often become more proud of their heritage and they prefer friendships within their ethnic group. Friends also serve as a source of social comparison. So this can help children evaluate their competencies relative to other children. So in terms of contextual influences and cross-race friendships, the impact of diversity does have an effect on friendships. So ethnic diversity in schools and neighborhoods can influence children's likelihood to form cross-race friendships. So typically this happens in more diverse environments. Cross-race friendships provide similar intimacy and support as same-race friendships, which can promote inclusion and emotional safety. Girls are generally more likely than boys to have ethnically diverse social networks. Cross-race friendships also foster tolerance and discourage exclusion, which can contribute to a more inclusive peer culture. Many friendships can come and go as children develop new hobbies, interests, competencies, and values. Friendships can last for years, especially when they are based on trust, sharing, and understanding. Friendships that exist in multiple settings like school and extracurricular activities are more likely to last. Losing a friend can be upsetting for older children, but many eventually form new friendships. Children who lose a friend but make a new one soon after usually adjust better emotionally. And there are some children that have no close friends or best friends, which can make them feel lonely. About 15 to 20% of children consistently lack mutual friendships. Children without friends tend to report feeling more lonely than other children, especially when they desire friends. Friendless children who desire friends may lack social skills or might direct your friendship towards children who are unlikely to reciprocate. Some research suggests that young elementary school children without friends score lower on measures of theory of mind, and this suggests that they are not cognitively prepared to take another person's perspective, which is a key skill that's critical to making new friends. Lacking a best friend itself is not necessarily harmful or indicative of problems or loneliness. There are some children that simply prefer solitude, and their preference for alone time is not driven by anxiety or fear. So, although lacking close friends is not associated with maladjustment, social acceptance by the peer group can influence children's adjustment. During middle childhood, being accepted by peers becomes very important for self-esteem and confidence. Peer acceptance means how well a child is liked by others. There are some children that become especially well liked, while others may be ignored or feel rejected. Peer acceptance becomes a vital source of self-validation and confidence. Children seek to be viewed as worthy social partners, and those who are well liked often exhibit traits such as helpfulness, trustworthiness, and friendliness. Popular children are typically skilled in emotion regulation, self control, and social information processing. And these competencies enable them to navigate social situations effectively and maintain a positive peer relationship. Theory of mind is a strong predictor of popularity, and it enhances empathy and social understanding. So the role of theory of mind has an influence on popularity, and it predicts it among peers due to empathy and having understanding of others and being able to take on different perspectives. Children who are rejected by their peers are often disliked or excluded, and this may happen when they have trouble communicating, controlling their emotions, or reading social cues. There was a research study on kindergartners, and they found that kindergarten children who had difficulty controlling their emotions were more likely than their more skilled peers to experience peer rejection years later. Boys and girls with behavioral problems experience a heightened risk for peer rejection, and that in return is associated with increases in behavioral problems throughout elementary school and in adolescence. Peer rejection can lead to a variety of problems such as loneliness, depression, low self-esteem, and academic difficulties. It can also increase the risk of delinquency and dropping out later on. Rejected children often miss chances to practice social skills, and they may become targets of bullying. There's two types of aggressive children. So they typically there's aggressive rejected children and withdrawn rejected children. Withdrawn rejected children tend to isolate themselves from others. They rarely initiate contact with peers, and they speak less frequently than their peers. They tend to spend most of their time playing alone and on the periphery of the social scene, and it's often due to shyness or social anxiety. When socially withdrawn children experience peer rejection, they tend to become more withdrawn and even more disliked by their peers. Despite this, socially withdrawn children are just as likely to have a best friend as other children. In terms of aggressive rejected children, these children tend to be more confrontational and hostile towards other children. They tend to be more impulsive, hyperactive, and they enter peer groups in destructive ways that disrupt the group's interaction or activity, and they direct attention to themselves. They tend to also misinterpret social cues as being more hostile, and so they tend to quickly assume hostile intentions of others. Children whose parents show little warmth and use coercive discipline are more likely to have poor social skills and show that aggressive behavior. And they're also more likely to threaten other kids and more likely to be rejected by other children. And so both aggressive rejected and withdrawn rejected children tend to misinterpret other children's behaviors and motives. So socially withdrawn children tend to interpret that other children may not want to play with them or may be afraid of rejection, and so they tend to isolate themselves more. Whereas aggressive rejected children tend to interpret others being hostile or acting in ways that are misinterpreted. And so peer rejection can further hinder social development by depriving children of opportunities to learn and practice social skills such as interacting with other children, resolving conflict, and regulating emotions. So bullying is also known as peer victimization, and it's when a child repeatedly tries to harm another child through physical, verbal, or social actions, such as hitting, teasing, excluding, or humiliating. It affects school-age children worldwide, so about 15 to 25% of children in countries like Australia, England, and the US are reporting involvement. Physical bullying tends to be the most common in early childhood, and verbal and social bullying become more frequent during adolescence. Cyberbullying is bullying someone through text messages or social media, and it's a form of relational bullying that often occurs alongside other types, and it's more common among adolescents. Boys and girls who bully others tend to be impulsive and aggressive. Boys are more likely to use physical aggression and target both boys and girls. Girls usually use verbal or social tactics like teasing, excluding, or spreading rumors, and this is often known as relational aggression. Relational bullying often happens when children want to gain or keep high social status and power among their peers. Those who are good at using these tactics are often seen as popular and confident. Many bullies report having friends and receiving as much social support as their peers. Children who bully frequently experience inconsistent or harsh parenting. They also tend to experience low emotional support and receive very little supervision from parents. Their parents may rely on physical punishment or encourage retaliation, and so they view aggression as an acceptable form of behavior. Bullying can also be influenced by cultural context. So, for example, there was a study of Puerto Rican children, and the study showed that those living as a minority group in the mainland US were more likely to bully than those living in Puerto Rico. And so children who are more adjusted to the US culture also bullied more. And this suggests that bullying might sometimes be a way of coping with stress from adapting to a new culture or facing discrimination. Children who are bullied are often seen by their peers as different, quiet, shy, or cautious. Many report having overprotective or critical parents, which can make them more vulnerable to being targeted. Victims often show social behaviors like being passive, withdrawn, or unassertive, and emotional traits such as anxiety, depression, and difficulty controlling their emotions. And these traits may exist before bullying begins and often becomes worse afterward. Bullying can harm children's emotional well-being and school performance from as early as kindergarten, and these effects can last into adolescence and beyond. Many children cope with bullying by avoiding situations where the bullying happens. Say they may skip school or they may stay away from certain places where they know the bully is going to be. Reactions like crying, giving in, or becoming defensive can sometimes encourage bullies to continue. Older children may respond to bullying with anger or revenge, and this leads to reactive aggression, which means lashing out in response to being provoked. Not all bully children are passive, so there are some known as bully victims, and they both bully others and are bullied themselves. Bully victims often have the emotional difficulties of victims, like anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, but they also show more aggression, impulsivity, and poor self-control. Because they struggle to manage their emotions, they may react aggressively and have more conflicts with their peers. These children are often disliked by their classmates, and they're at a higher risk for emotional problems, including anxiety and depression, that can persist into adulthood. So there are several approaches to bullying and interventions to prevent it from happening. Bullying usually happens in social settings like schools, where the environment affects how it develops and continues. Effective programs to stop bullying are they tend to be more effective when they're considering everyone involved, which would be the victims, the bullies, and the bystanders. These programs help victims build confidence, improve social skills, and learn how to respond without encouraging further bullying. It's also important to emphasize that victims are never to blame. So children that bully often need guidance to recognize and manage their emotions properly. Children that are angry and direct their anger out on the victim, it's important that they are able to handle their anger safely. And so parents and children should be aware of, children that are bullying and understand how their actions are affecting others. Teachers can also play a vital role by noticing the bullying and stepping in quickly. Bystanders are students that witness bullying, and they can have a major influence on whether the bullying continues. When bystanders stay silent or watch, they can unintentionally support the bully. So schools can encourage students to stand up for victims, tell an adult, or discourage the bullying if it's safe to do so. Parents should also model and reinforce supportive behaviors. Other options are awareness and change within the school and at home, so developing policies against bullying. Reducing bullying requires a whole school effort. So schools need to review their rules, classroom environments, and supervision practices to identify factors that may allow bullying to persist, and then changing that. So most states now require schools to have anti-bullying policies in place. And lasting change happens when teachers, parents, and students are working together to create a culture of respect and safety where bullying is not tolerated.